Hello, everybody. Top of the evening to you all. Morning, afternoon, whatever time of day it may be. Welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. I hope you're all having a good time, good day, even though I just repeated myself. Okay. So I first want to apologize for, the delay. I mean, should be used to it by now, but it's always something, right? So the audio levels were all out of whack, and the video would have sounded awful if I didn't keep tweaking them. And even then, like, there's going to be one or two segments that might be a little off. So I did the best I could with it. So just to give you a warning, it'll probably only be one or two things, and in those I'll kind of just present it maybe a little differently, but we'll see. So this is episode number 2 of the Life Review Deception, and it'll be NDE commentary and analysis, which further proves evidence, or further shows evidence in support of the Matrix Reincarnation Soul Trap. So I won't keep you guys much longer. I'm going to dive right into it, and we'll see. Just so you know, Rich and Actville's channel are they're hucksters, so I'll just leave it at that. All right. Where are we? Come on, let's go. And just so you guys know, I've been using a new streaming software, so I'm still kind of getting used to it, so it might take a little while. There it is. Okay. All right, so let's dive into it, my friends. Here we go. This is episode 2.
Started drifting away from my body and moving through something that later, as a researcher, I could call a tunnel. At the time, I had no explanation for any of this because I was an atheist and I didn't believe you could exist beyond your body. But I was moving through something that turned out to be the shape of a tunnel. And the next thing I knew, my grandmother was there. Now, she had been dead for 14 years, and I had never once believed that anybody existed beyond their death. And my grandmother just put her arms around me like she did when I was a child and pulled me into her chest. And the next thing I knew, we were re-experiencing all 19 years we were on the planet together. She died when I was 19. And I wasn't just experiencing these memories through my eyes or my heart. I could feel her too. I experienced everything she experienced, and I have a feeling that she experienced everything I did about the love we shared for each other.
Okay, so, she met with Grandma, and what's interesting is she talks about how she experienced both ends, and that's common with NDEs. And I lost my train of thought, so let's move on. Sorry.
And I started moving away from her, but she told me, not with her mouth, but heart to heart, that she would always be there waiting for me.
And all right, she would always be there waiting for her. So what that really is, in my opinion, is a primer for her for when she crosses over. It's hey, hey granddaughter, I'm gonna be here waiting to cross you over when your time comes. Little does she know that, grandma's still stuck in the matrix. If again, this is the big part with all this. Is it really even grandma? That's like the ultimate question. Are these is grandma still in the matrix, or is um or is this just like a holographic deception? I honestly feel most, if not all of these are holographic deceptions, memory implants. Um, it's really tough to say because we really don't know. But what we do know is if you've made it to this point where you're with grandma and interacting with her, it's not good. It's not good. You're not approaching it with a sovereign perspective. You're actually giving yourself over to something else, which in this case is grandma. Very common seeing deceased loved ones.
And then I was back, and it happened again a week later while suspended in the bed. This time I was awake when I separated from my body. I was crying hard. I was laying on my tummy, and I looked down and I saw her. It sure wasn't me. I was up near the ceiling. I looked down and I saw her crying in a bubble. And then I looked out into the space.
In a bubble. Crying in a bubble.
And I saw myself at about a year old crying just as hard in a bubble.
Okay, so this kind of gives me orb feelings, like I could be wrong, like a holographic type orb. Because if I studied orbs for a long time, and what you start to notice, first off, we have the capability of interacting with them, even bringing them close into our reality. And if you start to film them, you'll see faces in them. And a lot of times they'll be rapidly changing different faces, but sometimes they'll be fairly steady. And you'll see human faces, you'll see animals, you'll see sometimes some creepy things, but most of the time it's recognizable entities. And what exactly is going on there, if they're more or less spirit containers, I don't know, but I spent a lot of time going through that, and I think that's something similar to what she's saying. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but it's just something I wanted to throw out there.
And after looking back and forth about 3 times, I decided to go to the baby, that I didn't want to be her anymore. And as soon as I did that, it was like I let go of this lifetime. I felt this energy could just wrap itself around me and move into me and become me.
Oh, I felt this energy wrap itself around me and become me. Wrap itself around me and become me. That's really important because what's that doing? What that is doing is it's creating this energy field, and emitting that energy onto her, and she is obviously fine with grandma, or who she perceives to be grandma, and well, what would you think? I mean, it would open, we're talking about, you were just human. You have this experience and you immediately have this onslaught of something different that you don't recognize, but you do recognize grandma who's there to comfort you. And well, that's not good. It's not good because we would think it is good, but it's an energy emitting exchange that is controlling her. Okay, it's helping and it makes things easier for control purposes.
After looking back and forth about 3 times, I decided to go to the baby, that I didn't want to be her anymore. And as soon as I did that, it was like I let go of this lifetime. I felt this energy could just wrap itself around me and move into me and become me. And just like with my grandmother, this energy let me see through its heart and through its eyes. And now I can call it God. At the time, going from atheism to having this experience, I couldn't use a word, but now I know that was God comforting me. And together we moved to the baby. And that baby was in a cloud.
All right, so she interprets it as God. Let's just hear that again. I mean, I think that's pretty important how she goes to the two extremes.
Come me. And just like with my grandmother, this energy let me see through its heart and through its eyes. And now I can call it God. At the time, going from atheism to having this experience, I couldn't use a word, but now I know that was God comforting me. And together we moved to the baby. And that baby was in a cloud that contained thousands of clouds, and in each, thousands of bubbles, and in each bubble was another event from my life. So we had the experience together of bobbing through the bubbles, and at the same time, there was a linear sequence of the 32 years I had been here in this lifetime. And I kept hearing myself say, no wonder, no wonder. And that man, no wonder you are the way you are. Look at the abuse you had as a child. And when I would think that, this energy would hold me tighter. And looking at it now, it was such a powerful experience that if that energy wasn't holding me, I don't think I could have survived. I think I just would have exploded.
You know, again, when I hear these things, I'm not a heartless asshole. I feel bad for people who go through these experiences and are, again, I think it's all heavy manipulation. There are clear mechanisms at play. Okay, there are energy fields at play. There are manipulation tactics at play which take over somebody. Okay, and direct them in put them in a certain direction. It's, I mean, this is what she feels. She's connecting with it, and again, my heart goes out to her, but she is being taken for a ride. This is not a sovereign approach for her. Okay, and what does she do? She jumps immediately and says, "It's God." Talk about the most huge extreme jump. She doesn't know this is God. She perceives it as God because it's giving her love. And, we hear this all the time with near-death experiences where they say it's the most love they've ever felt, etc. Mothers will say it's, more than the birth of their children. I mean, we're talking about major energy influx being received here. Okay. And it might seem good on the outside. And that's what a lot of these NDEs look like. They look like, oh my Lord, this, the afterlife's incredible. I can't wait to get there. But there's no reason to make a decision about what you're going to do in the afterlife so soon. Take control of your experience and then make the decisions. Why do you got to be, boom, smashed with something immediately, sent into this experience? You don't need to do that. You don't. You control your own destiny. And that's all I'm saying. Nobody has to believe a word I say, but if you just think about the sovereign perspective of you being in control of your own destiny, isn't that a good thing? Giving yourself some time to readjust when you're crossing over. I mean, no, we don't have to agree on anything here. All we have to agree on is, hey, Do you want to be in control of your own destiny and kind of just see what happens and forge your own path? Or do you want to roll the dice and just immediately submit to something you don't even know? You were just a human, and you're going into your true essence. Well, in this case, your astral body, okay, which is linked to the Matrix, but it's still your more pure self than you are when you're in the body. So why wouldn't you want to just control your own destiny? See how it plays out. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to believe any of this stuff, but just put yourself in the driver's seat for once. Don't you deserve that? I think everybody deserves to at least go that route. So, okay. That's a little bit of a rant.
And together, what we re-experienced too was that my mother, who was the one that was very crazy and tormenting me, abusing me, I could feel and see and hear somehow all the abuse that she had had as a child. So there was like instant forgiveness because there was instant understanding. And then,
okay, listen. You know, again, when someone is abused, I get it, and you know, you want to connect. Like, you know, her mother was not a kind parent, abused her. She admits it. But, you know, I've brought up examples on the channel before of really, really sad cases, especially like with some of the deathbed visions and visitations right before someone's about to die. And you'll have someone who had been disconnected from their parents for 50, 60, 70 years sometimes, okay? And their parents have long since passed. They left the house at 18. The first moment they can emancipate themselves and go on their own, they did it. And cut off communication for life, okay, going forward. And somehow the Matrix thinks, oh, well, you know, let's throw, you know, the abusive parent into the mix and we'll go from there. And there's forgiveness given and this and that and blah, blah. And again, you know, she's saying her mother was abused. She's empathizing. I get that. I get it. But do you see how this can be a deceptive tactic? Something that was so harmful to you growing up is all of a sudden excused in an instant. Instead of giving yourself the time to do what you need to do for yourself. This is, you know, it's an individual journey that we're on. We like to think that, you know, oh, we have this, we have that, you know, we have all these connections. Yeah, we do. There's a lot of love to go around. There's a lot of great relationships we make. But when you really boil it all down, this is an individual journey. And giving yourself up to something that abused you and just excusing it right out the gate, you know, no big deal. It's not, you can see how this can be used against us. That's kind of my point.
and I was back here in this reality, and it's taken me 37 years to figure out and to integrate all of this wonderful stuff that happened to me in that experience.
And then it was all of a sudden I started to feel and more or less get a view of my life leading up to that point. All the things that I did that were, say, negative, or how I affected people negatively and positively. I felt the anger they had towards me, but I also felt, the good I did, like the feelings of relief that when I did help people. So I started to notice that everything was joined in, everything connected. It was very clear that there was no separation from anyone that I interacted with. It was all meshed in together, and I got to feel and review. So we hear a lot of times about...
Okay, before we let that continue, what they, if you start reading enough NDEs, listening to them, you see both ends of the spectrum, where the life review puts you in a position where you're experiencing from the other person's point of view that you might have done wrong. You know, let's just say punch somebody, okay? And you will feel that punch as if you were in that person's shoes that you hurt, okay? And then they'll also roll out the good stuff. But what we really don't hear fully in a lot of these is how there's this karmic twist in it, because the karmic stuff kind of goes off into another realm of research, which is the past life regression area, okay, and even pre-birth memories, okay. So that's why it's really hard to be able to always paint the picture properly with one specific thing, because one aspect of research can oftentimes be correlated with another piece of research and pull them in together and paint a better picture. So they use karma, judgment, sinning, however you want to frame it, against us. Okay? That's just the bottom line. That's what they do. And this is a system we cannot please. Okay? There is no pleasing this system, my friends. Okay? That is very evident. And, you know, I don't care what anyone says. It's plain as day to me, and everyone has a right to their opinion, of course, but it's plain as day to me that there's a reason things like karma are talked about here. There's a reason why things like sinning are discussed here. Is a reason why, you know, judgment is discussed here. And that's because it's all part of the mechanism here. Think about it. How big is karma? How big is sinning and judgment? You know, I'm not saying, you know, go out and be an asshole. I'm just saying the point is it's a matrix construct that is pushed beyond belief. And if you can't see the connection from what something like he's saying, and this is just minor, this is just one little small example. If you can't see that, you know, he's saying, oh, well, you know, I experienced this and this and that through the bad things, then I experienced the good things. Because what they do is they kind of throw both at you to not overwhelm you and kind of still keep you sucked in. But then what happens is you move, you know, this is once you die, then actually die, then you go on to, you know, you probably go through your soul group again, and your so-called masters, your guides, the council of elders. And what happens is they say, well, you know, let me check my checklist here. All right. Remember when you punched that guy last lifetime? Well, that's a strike. That's a strike. We're going to have to, you know, you're going to suffer your next lifetime. Okay, you know, we're not going to make it too bad, but you know, it's not going to be a cakewalk. You're not going to be a millionaire. You're not going to be. See what I'm saying? I've covered this stuff to Kingdom Come, and I seriously, my friends, if you're new to this, just check out the commentary I did on the books of Michael Newton. Start with Destiny of Souls. And then, what the heck's the other one? Wow, having a brain fart here. Anyways, I'll keep the NDE going, and then I'll bring them up. But the point is they do connect. That's all. I don't want to ramble too much, but
life reviews, and that's exactly what happened. There was more or less a review, but it was more of an emotional review of how I affected others emotionally. And after this, things started to open up even more. And I started to see beyond this life, so this life review, but I started to see other life views as far as like the past life, the one just before this. And then as I started to kind of review those, other ones started to open, and then it just kept going. And so, but it was funny because
Now you see how the past life thing was brought up. So this guy's got a little bit of a more unique case, because he's talking about how multiple past lives were intertwined with. Sorry about that. Hitting the mic. Intertwined with multiple past lives were intertwined with his life so far in this incarnation. That's some crazy stuff.
on this life, so this life review, but I started to see other life views as far as like the past life, the one just before this. And then as I started to kind of review those, other ones started to open, and then it just kept going. And so, but it was funny because I wasn't in time or space. It was very clear that time and space was more of a process. So everything is incredibly slowed down. And now everything's running at a rate that's so fast that past lives, like multiple past lives, are meshed all in one kind of a moment. And then it just kept opening up. So the longer I was out of my body, the more this opened up. And it was very, like, it just kept going. So it was very apparent that, we talk about like old souls or new souls or things like this. I could liken it to a time frame of probably trillion years worth of lifetimes. It just kept.
A trillion years of lifetimes. Okay, now I'm sure that's a major exaggeration, but can you see how even if it's 1,500 lifetimes, that could kind of be a little bit of a problem? Is that not enough of a warning sign to be concerned? That maybe something's rotten in Denmark here? This entire construct that we live in is based on deception and manipulation. From cradle to grave, it is perfectly set up so that we lose ourselves and not come to this moment right here, right now. This moment right here, right now is what is important, that we are realizing how much we've been taken advantage of, how much we've been played. And all I'm saying to you is, again, you don't have to buy into all this stuff that I'm saying. You can go and do your own research. Nobody has to believe me. But what I am saying is just control your own destiny and see what happens. It's better than just, I just submit. Here you go. Okay, I'm going to the light. Oh, I'm going to the light. I'm going to the tunnel. No. It's because what's going to happen is, what happens when we come here? We have no recollection of who we are, where we came from, why we are here, where we are going. Lifetime after lifetime, the veil of forgetfulness is thrown onto us. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You really want to roll the dice? Don't roll the dice, my friends. It's insane. No matter what you believe, what you subscribe to, approach it from a sovereign perspective and a liberated perspective. And that's all you need to do. That's it.
Opening and opening. And the time of it, if you were to go linearly, I believe that we all kind of are old souls, but we only have so much access to those experiences. Like, how
we only have so much access. You know what that is? The veil of forgetfulness. That's the veil. We only have so much access. That's a truth bomb right there. That's, right in our face. We only have so much access. But yet, when we hear other NDE'S, what do they say? They say, "Oh, I was all knowing. I knew the answer to every question. Blah blah. I was able to figure it out." But we only had so much access. Which one is it? Which one is it? See what I'm saying? There's contradictions you can find throughout many of these. And it's just a matter of not taking them for their word and thinking that, okay, they're being fed some information. And it's not like I'm discounting that they had the experience, because I thoroughly believe almost all these people have these experiences. The point is they're just being misguided, and they're tangling with an entity or entities that are really good at what they do, or an AI. Something along those lines.
It just kept opening and opening. And the time of it, if you were to go linearly, I believe that we all kind of are old souls, but we only have so much access to those experiences. Like, you know how children, like a 3-year-old, will become all of a sudden like a savant, and he'll be like this amazing piano player, right? That's because they're actually accessing these past lives where he already was a piano player. And like, it was apparent, like these things were becoming made, like they were being realized for me.
He's right. He's right. That's a huge part of it. And I'll share a story. I'm not going to go crazy here, but I'll share a story. I think I've maybe talked about it once or twice on the channel. There was a time when I was really, really young. I want to say I was maybe 6 or 7. And I was in the car with my parents, and I was just learning, I don't know, addition and division or something like that, subtraction, really, really basic math, okay? And my parents were quizzing me in the car because I had a test the next day, all right? And then I just start spitting out randomly all these insane multiplication tables. And the funny thing is I remember this moment happening. But my parents were like, how the hell do you know this? I mean, I was saying, all sorts of crazy, is this, is that, like high numbers, things I should not have known at that age. And I remember the exact moment, the street we were on, where I was seated in the car. And I'm just saying that is stuff that I did not learn in school. That's stuff that I did not memorize. I didn't have tests on it yet. I didn't even really learn much of multiplication yet. So, it's nothing huge, but it's something. It shows that, yes, we do tap into previous lives, and that we've been here before. We've all been here before.
So at the same time that I was experiencing this near-death experience, it was also teaching me about life, about energy, about reality. Also, like, it was showing me about the mistakes that I had made, my purpose, even other people's purposes that I interacted with. It was just showing this much broader point of view. And from where I came from, like having, the negativity and the drugs and stuff, it was very clear that I lived my life incredibly wrong. Like, I set up this blueprint for myself to follow, and every challenge that I had laid out, I failed. Every single one. And it was so clear to see that. It was just obvious that every single one I failed, which ultimately led to that death, right? And I got to see this. It was like a grid, a blueprint of my life that was laid out, and that I built that blueprint. I built the challenges. I put in certain people, certain friends, my family, my parents, and I laid out all these little kind of tests and trials and tribulations. And when I was looking down on it, I was feeling like, I couldn't even get one right, like not one thing that I get out of this. It was like, I didn't feel horrible, because when you're in that state, you can't feel bad, but it was kind of like, man, like that was, I got to do this over again. So these challenges that I set up, my soul wanted to go through these. It wanted.
Now I got to do this again. My soul wanted to go through it. See the consent factor there? How he's openly admitting Granted, yes, there is a deception factor with all of this, a manipulation factor that we all fall into, but he is showing openly the consent factor, how he has bought into the basically this is a soul school.
Looking down on it, I was feeling like, oh, like I couldn't even get one right, like not one thing that I get out of this. It was like I didn't feel horrible, because when you're in that state, you can't feel bad, but it was kind of like, man, like that was, I got to do this over again. So these challenges that I set up, my soul wanted to go through these. It wanted to transcend some fears and things like that.
Now I got to do it all over again. Now I got to do it all over again. See, like he's. See, it's so funny because they give these clues all the time. They openly admit it. I'm gonna rewind this because it's important to hear it. Because he is subconsciously telling us, "Oh, I gotta do this again. I don't want to do it, but I didn't please the Matrix gods."
Only my parents, and I laid out all these little kind of tests and trials and tribulations. And when I was looking down on it, I was feeling like, oh, like I couldn't even get one right, like not one thing that I get out of this. It was like I didn't feel horrible, because when you're in that state, you can't feel bad, but it was kind of like, man, like that was, I got to do this over again. So these challenges that I set up, my soul wanted to go through these. It wanted to transcend some fears and things like that. So the next thing that I remember is my younger brother, who had died the year previous. He had come up to me, gave me a hug, and he had said, "Wow, that was quite the ride. It looks like you didn't even get one thing right." That kind of
Wow, that was quite the ride. You didn't even get one thing right. His brother came up and said that to him. See, that's the guilt, fear, shame matrix. Right in our face. Want to hear that again?
I remember is my younger brother, who had died the year previous. He had come up to me, gave me a hug, and he had said, "Wow, that was quite the ride. It looks like you didn't even get one thing right." That kind of became like almost a joke, and saying, do you want to go back to try it again, to actually, work through these challenges? You don't have to, but you can. And then he said, "I want you to come and follow me, because I want you to meet someone special."
You want to follow me? You want to meet someone special? You want to meet one of our archonic friends? That's the translation. I'm sorry.
So I had gone down this, you could say, a hallway. We weren't where we were anymore, where the paramedics were there. I was no longer in that area. I was gone somewhere else. And he brought me into this room that was it was like basically a round room, and it was just all light. There was nothing but light. There was no floor, no walls, really, no ceiling, but it appeared to be round. And I was there, and then my brother had kind of somehow opened up a door in this white room, and we walked in, and there was these three beings there, call them spirit guides, and they had looked at me and said, "You're here for a purpose, you're here for a reason, and we would like and advise you to go back."
You're here for a purpose. You have you have a reason to be here. I mean, it's the classic stuff that we hear. I mean, we see it all the time. Why is that there? Anyways, it's always just in our face. You see how they're always putting that needle there. You weren't good enough. You did okay, but you know, you missed it by this much. It's not right. It's not right. Again, you cannot please this system. You can't. It's impossible to please.
Had kind of somehow opened up a door in this white room, and we walked in, and there was these three beings there, call them spirit guides, and they had looked at me and said, you know, you're here for a purpose, you're here for a reason, and we would like and advise you to go back. We know that you wanted to leave, but we really advise that you go back. So it wasn't like there.
I just want to add that when you see three beings, that's usually an indication of the council. Okay, we can call it the Council of Elders. I mean, that is usually my interpretation of it when we see multiple beings. Now, could it be, you know, entities within, quote unquote, your soul group that act as guides, ascended masters, or all that type of stuff? Yeah, it could. But the point is it's all one and the same. They're all fulfilling the duties of the Matrix. And you shouldn't even be at this point. Don't even allow yourself to reach talking with these things, because if you do, I seriously think if you make it this far, and you're interacting with them, you're pretty much screwed. So the whole point is to not even allow yourself to go there. It's just simply not allowed. You're coming at this at a fully sovereign perspective, where you are, nothing can interact with you, nothing can bother you, and you are the one calling the shots. You're the one in control, not these crackpots that probably aren't even real. They're just illusions. But let's move on.
And they had looked at me and said, you know, you're here for a purpose, you're here for a reason, and we would like and advise you to go back.
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep pausing it, but I mean, how often do we see in NDE'S constantly? They're saying, oh, you know, you need to go back because, you know, you're the only one that can fulfill this duty, or, you know, you're there to do this job, or you're there to do that job. And they come back and they're like twiddling their thumbs for a year or two, completely traumatized by their experience because they came back here when they just experienced all this love and amazing, just the, you know, the experience was incredible, that they finally feel connected with parts of their true self, and they have these things chirping in their ear. And they say, oh, you know, you have a mission. You have a mission to fulfill. Well, why don't you fill me in on what the mission is? Most of these people don't even know what the hell their mission is. That's what I've started to see. I mean, it seems clear that they don't know, but they might do a lot of good. That's the other thing, is that, you know, I've seen NDE people who have an NDE and come back. You know, they open up a food pantry or do all sorts of good things. Okay, most of the time they're just improving their lives, which is great, but they're improving their lives, sharing their story, and stuck within the Matrix. That's not any way to live.
Had kind of somehow opened up a door in this white room, and we walked in, and there was these three beings there, call them spirit guides, and they had looked at me and said, you know, you're here for a purpose, you're here for a reason, and we would like and advise you to go back. We know that you wanted to leave, but we really advise that you go back. So it wasn't like they were forcing me. They made me make the choice and just said, we urge you, because there's a life that you need to live. There's a life that's something that you have to do that's more than what you just did. And so I decided, yes. I mean, it was very easy for me to decide yes, because it was very obvious with this knowledge going back, I probably have a better chance now. I mean, especially if I would remember it. I didn't know if I would remember any of this when I went back. However, I did. But so when we were there, this holographic image started to appear and just started to go around me in this round room and started to surround me. And it was an image of my future. It was an image of what could be if I went back and if I were to fix the problems, if I were to go through the fears and the challenges, if I were to work my stuff out. Also, there was a karmic retribution. Like I had to pay off a karmic debt, which is something I always question whether karma was real. And yes, absolutely. I had to feel what I did to others.
Ding, 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 ding. The guilt, fear, shame matrix. The guilt, fear, shame matrix. I mean, he's laying it all out there for you.
Round room and started to surround me. And it was an image of my future.
They started to surround me.
It was an image of what could be.
Of what could be.
If I went back and if I were to fix the problems, if I were to go through the fears and the challenges, if I were to work my stuff out. Also, there was a karmic retribution. Like I had to pay off a karmic debt, which is something I always question whether karma was real. And yes, absolutely. I had to feel what I did to others. And that was a way for me to learn, not like a punishment, but I had to learn that if I do learn that, I'm more chances of me of doing that to someone else is not going to happen because I actually felt what they would feel. So karma for me was it was more of a tool for my growth.
Yeah. It was more of a tool for my growth. More of a tool for my growth. That's the common thing we hear, right? It's insane. It's how many times we got to hear this to realize that we're being scammed. It's so obvious, my friends, that we're being taken for a ride. It's just not allowed anymore. It's not allowed.
And I was accompanied now by a presence as opposed to simply being devastated by this holy storm of light. And I was called to recount for the deeds of my life. And this recounting for the deeds of one's life is not like we would think at all in terms of this life. Because what was important were the choices that I made. And what was more important than just the choices that I made were my motivations and my intents and really the state of my heart in doing any single action. And I realized in this, because I experienced sort of in a holographic awareness that was rather instantaneous, how every action that one takes is like a stone cast in the water. And if it's loving, that stone, is cast in the water, and the loving action goes out and touches the first person that it's intended for, and then it touches another person, and then it touches another person because that person interacts with other people, and so on and so on. And every action has a reverberating effect upon every single one of us on the face of this planet. So if I had committed a loving action, it was like love upon light. A purely loving action was the most wonderful thing that I could ever achieved in my life.
All right. I mean, she was hit with the love bomb, and it's just the excuse train. But she doesn't know any better because she experienced it. And, again, someone experiencing this type of thing, my heart goes out to them. It's a difficult thing to have this type of experience, such a strong spiritual experience, and come back and be able to realize what happened to you. Because where I am today, it took me a number of years to get here. I fought it with every fiber in my being to acknowledge that this is actually going on. This is the last thing I wanted to be true. And I can't imagine having an NDE. I really can't. Especially like the Love Bomb one, because I would have been putty in their hands. Putty in their hands. And it's just not going to... It's just not good. Sorry.
Has a reverberating effect upon every single one of us on the face of this planet. So if I had committed a loving action, it was like love upon light. A purely loving action was the most wonderful thing that I could ever achieved in my life. This had more meaning than to have been a Rockefeller or President of the United States, or to have been, a great scientist and to have invented something just incredible. If I had committed a truly pure and loving action, it had reverberated throughout the stuff of every individual on the planet, and I felt that action reverberating through them and through myself.
Oh, come on. I mean, it's... This is just it's a setup job. That's really the bottom line, I don't discount that she felt that, but I mean, just would something that cares about you, ask yourself this question. Would something that cares about you continue to send you down here for some spiritual growth experience? Lifetime after lifetime, veil after veil, not remembering anything or bordering on almost anything. It's insane. It's insane. This is a Stockholm Syndrome realm where the majority of the population is siding and empathizing with its captors. It's nuts.
And I felt it in a way that is beyond what we can even feel ourselves on this plane of existence. So the significance of one's actions totally changed. What was not important was anything that I had owned or known intellectual, there's a sense of intellectual pride, not that knowledge is bad, knowledge is good, but what was important was the purity and the motivation of every action. And I recall the most important of my actions is an instant I would never have recalled except for the near-death experience.
All right, so here we go. This is just a common occurrence in NDE'S where they, in the life review specifically, where a moment will show up that is basically like something they don't expect. But yet the Matrix makes a big deal out of it. It's like, oh my God, you gave a kid a lollipop one time out of pure love. It's always something they don't think about or remember. It's the most mundane thing. Now, it's not like it wasn't a good act that they did, but it's always something that the person looks at and says, well, I don't really, out of all these things I've done in life, This is the one the Matrix picks out. You know, they're not saying the Matrix, but that's what I'm saying. It's always these weird moments. And it's a common theme. It's a data point to be on the lookout when you're looking at this stuff. It's nuts. It's nuts.
And that's many years ago. I had worked every summer as a volunteer with retarded children. There was a day camp that went on, and I spent all summer going every day, 8 hours a day, to this day camp. And there was a child one time. It wasn't as if I were being rewarded for taking good actions, you know, like writing down actions. Well, I have done this good and that good and that good. No, what was important was, again, the motivation and the purity and the sincerity of my acts. And I had taken a child aside on a very hot day, and this was not a charming or a particularly lovable child. But I wanted this child to feel loved. I wanted this child to feel really the love of God that brought him into existence and that brought us all into existence. And I took him aside, although I wasn't religiously motivated, you know, formally. I just wanted him to feel love. Took him aside and sang to him and gave him something to drink and just spent some time with him. And he was very agitated, but I just wanted him to feel that love. And that was the greatest of all actions. And that filled me with just unspeakable and incomprehensible joy. And it was not an action that anyone noticed. And it was not an action that I even recalled. And it was not an action that I had done with any thought of reward. It was simply an action motivated by love, by selfless love.
Let's rewind that.
Action that I had done, an incomprehensible joy. And it was not an action that anyone noticed. And it was not an action that I even recalled.
Not even an action that I recalled. I'm telling you, this is one of those points in NDE'S that just shows up time and time and time again. The most mundane, weirdest thing that they don't even remember or consider, but yet the Matrix is like, oh, well, here, this is your moment to shine. I mean, come on.
And it was not an action that I had done with any thought of reward. It was simply an action motivated by love, by selfless love. And this had great meaning. In this context, one becomes aware that, you know, judgment is not necessarily imposed from the outside, but there was a judgment that was born of the sense of mine own knowledge. Suddenly I had a point of reference. Suddenly I realized is not necessarily imposed from the outside, but there was a judgment that was born of the sense of mine own knowledge. Suddenly I had
a judgment that was born from my own knowledge. A judgment that was born from my own knowledge.
Point of reference. Suddenly I realized that it was love that had brought me into existence on this plane of existence. It was love that had guided me through every instant of my life. It was really a love that had accompanied me throughout my whole life and accompanied every individual throughout my whole life. And really there was nothing that I could have done to have been worthy of that love.
There's nothing that I could have done to have been worthy of that love. It's like, why don't you just bow down and just give everything away? Just give every little bits and pieces about yourself away to something else that you know nothing about. I mean, really, Here, listen to what she says. I mean, this is a really eye-opening life review testimonial.
A love that had accompanied me throughout my whole life and accompanied every individual throughout my whole life. And really, there was nothing that I could have done to have been worthy of that love, that unspeakable, incomprehensible, immeasurable love that I realized that I was receiving, and that all individuals were receiving.
Receiving. You know, again, this is an energy that is being emitted to people. Okay? It's being cast down or onto each person who goes through it. Okay? This is not some organic thing going on. This is an energy that has manipulation, deception, control embedded into all of it over the person experiencing it.
Of that love that in life and accompanied every individual throughout my whole life. And really, there was nothing that I could have done to have been worthy of that love, that unspeakable, incomprehensible, immeasurable love that I realized that I was receiving, and that all individuals were receiving. So to have committed any act of love was the greatest joy and the greatest wonder and the greatest achievement.
And as I was entering what I call the tunnel of light, people were greeting me. And some of the people were still alive on Earth, but they were there greeting me, and along with people who had passed to the other side. They were welcoming me. There was music playing, and I didn't care. I just had this drive to get to the light, the source, the power, which was totally blinding light, yet I could look at it. It was almost an oxymoron. And I got to the light, and I said, why was my life so difficult? And the essence, the light, God, whatever you want to call it, the source, said, don't you remember you chose this? And he brought in some guides that individually took me to a table and said, remember when you chose this? You also chose these things, and we told you not to because it was too much to handle. So, but you insisted, you wanted to do it. And then they sent in more guides who went through the same process because I kept choosing a lot of things. Apparently, I wanted to do it all in one lifetime.
Apparently, I wanted to do it all in one lifetime, but they sent in an army to try and stop me. No, they want our lives as difficult as possible, as louche-filled as possible, so that we lose ourselves. We rely on the system, however it's set up. And I'm not Mr. Negativity. That's just the way it is. It doesn't take a genius to see what the heck is going on here as far as the negativity factor and how it's thrown onto us, and how Earth's history shows overwhelmingly a pattern of basically misery. Okay? That doesn't mean that everyone lives every single lifetime in misery, but it just means that there's always something there controlling you, trying to control you. And if you grow up inside a modern day system, it's ready and waiting to take a hold of you.
And then I recall the choices I made pre-birth, which sort of solidified and said that was okay. So I went back to the light, and the light says, now it's time to judge your life. And I did a life review, which to me appeared as a film strip with the leader holes to it. And each frame was a different instance of something that happened in my life. And I came to one that I was very regretful over. And a boy used to torment me, and I finally reacted one day and I hurt him. And I regretted that. And I told the light that that's what I regretted. And the light told me, well, you know, you've achieved what you went there to do, and you may stay here in the light.
But
we have another thing we want to offer you.
oh, ding, ding, ding. Just so you know, I did a whole segment on her NDE. I don't even know what to think of her testimony. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't say this that often, but she's one that you'll listen to and have reservations about whether she's just playing a game. And I got an interesting comment from somebody that I won't go into detail about, but you don't receive comments like that unless something is going on and it involves her and her son. So I'm just saying, but here, let's just rewind this one segment.
That's what I regretted. And the light told me, well, you know, you've achieved what you went there to do, and you may stay here in the light. But we have another thing we want to offer you. And they opened what I call door number 2. And they opened it a crack and they said, or you can go back and achieve what's behind door number 2. And I questioned him, the source, and I said, would that mean the doctor's going to remain a doctor? He won't quit his profession? And the source said, yes, he will remain a doctor if you go back. And I said, I was giddy with joy, and I said, then I'm going back. I want him to remain a doctor. That's my gift to him. And I was popped right back into my body instantly.
And then there was
I was popped back into my body instantly.
My gift to him. And I was popped right back into my body instantly.
And then there was a hallway that we entered at the end and went down a small distance, and a door opened and we went into a much smaller room. And in this much smaller room, there was like an enormous, almost like a conference table, oval shape.
All right. So when I hear conference table, I think the having a mind blank here. Council of Elders. Okay. That's what I feel. I feel that's what we're listening to. It's almost like when you're, this is just my opinion, of course, but when the guide or your soul group maybe feels that they can't control you well enough, I think what they do is they direct you right to the council, okay, or the perceived council, okay, the ones that you have the utmost respect for, you're bowing down, blah blah blah, that type of thing. So make of it what you will. I'm not saying this is exactly what's happening in this case, but it's what I suspect.
And then there was a hallway that we entered at the end and went down a small distance, and a door opened and we went into a much smaller room. And in this much smaller room, there was like an enormous, almost like a conference table, oval shape. And there were a large number of, well, not that large because it was the conference table, but, a number of spiritual beings who were already there and were all the way around it and waiting for us to come in. And as we came in, my guide said, or, communicated, we're going to review your life. And
we're going to review your life. For anyone out there who has not seen Defending Your Life, it's a must-see. You have to see it. If you haven't seen the movie, the Disney Pixar animation Soul, that's another one. Soul and Defending Your Life. Defending Your Life came out in 1991, and it shows the Matrix code, zeros and ones, as the report of someone's life. I mean, really, how much more obvious does it get? And it's all about judgment and, literally defending your life. But again, it's a system you cannot please, right? If you can't please the system, it shows overwhelmingly the crap that we put up with, the crap that we fall for. And you go through the whole system again, and then eventually you end up back here down in a body. It's a recycling system until you figure out the scam. It's nuts. It's insane.
As he said that, I realized that the whole center of this conference table type thing was like clear, like a glass bottom boat would be. And as he said that about my life, it was as though a hologram formed above the clear area in the center of the conference table.
A hologram formed. A hologram formed. I mean, what would a hologram kind of indicate, right? It would indicate something, like a program. Isn't that kind of just assumed? In our day and age, we're surrounded by technology. We know what it is. I could theoretically have access to technology that can create a hologram, make it look real, make it feel real. You can go and look at it. I mean, just think about what they did with the Tupac concert. It's a literal hologram of Tupac on stage in front of, what was it? 30, 40, 50,000 people? I don't know. Tons of people. And they're cheering for it, blah, blah, blah. And what does the Matrix do? The Matrix rolls out this whole system of holograms to trick you. But it's also part of your doing because you experienced it. You've allowed it to get this far. Don't allow it to get this far, because if you do, I don't know what you can do at that point. I don't know where the memory wipe starts and begins. I mean, it's just the whole point is to ground yourself in a sovereign perspective where you're shielded and not even capable of getting to that point. Because that's what you deserve. You deserve to be able to make a rational decision when you cross over.
Table. And this hologram, like a glass bottom boat would be. And as he said that about my life, it was as though a hologram formed above the clear area in the center of the conference table. And this hologram covered everything that had happened in my life from the time I was born right up until then. But instead of like watching it like I'd watch a movie or a film strip, I actually was re-experiencing everything that had happened, and every sort of interaction that I had had with other people.
And not to like beat a dead horse, but this is, again, it's a common data point in NDE'S. Anyone who looks at NDE'S can look at what she's saying, and you'll see it come up time and time and time again if the life review appears. It's a common data point where, they will experience things through the eyes of either good or bad, or wrongdoing, I guess we should say. And it's fully interactive. And And you're able to throw yourself in the other person's shoes that either you did good by or wrong by. But of course, they like to throw in the wrongdoings. But, they throw in the good too, because they got to play both sides. They play both sides so they can win you over.
And feeling what I felt at that time, but also feeling like I was the other person that I was interacting with. So if I was being mean, saying something nasty to somebody,
if I was being mean, if I was saying something nasty to somebody. That sounds a little guilt trip ridden, doesn't it?
Feeling like I was the other person that I was interacting with. So if I was being mean, saying something nasty to somebody, I was feeling how that hurt them and how they either were angry about it or sad about it, and how they carried that forth to somebody else and treated them differently because of it. So it was like the whole ripple effect of what my actions and my words had been and how they impacted someone else. The good things too, though. And being a physical therapist, there were a number of things, not just from being a physical therapist, but other things too, that I hadn't really thought that much about it being all that important. But to somebody else, it really was. It really made a life-changing difference to them. And so that was an amazing experience that you would think from the way I'm describing it would have taken a long, long time, but it was like it happened instantaneously. And as it was happening, I was feeling bad every time there was something that I had done that had hurt somebody else. And that
I was feeling bad every time that I had hurt somebody else. It's right there. The guilt, fear, shame matrix, front and center, because they play both sides. They give you the love bomb, and then they pound you with the bad, pound you with the good, and then they say, oh, well, you have a mission. You've got to go back. You have a purpose. Ba 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 ba. I mean, I'm really not trying to sound like a jerk, but it's just you hear these things over and over and over again, and you see the mechanisms. This is a program running. This is a program. We live in a time where we can see these types of things. We understand these types of things because we grew up with them, or we're familiar with them because that's the society we live in. So we can see an automated system running itself.
From the way I'm describing it would have taken a long, long time, but it was like it happened instantaneously. And as it was happening, I was feeling bad every time there was something that I had done that had hurt somebody else, and that had led to more domino effect of that going out from them. And yet no one that was there that was watching this with me had anything in the way of judgment or blame or negativity toward me as I was going through this. In fact, it was the exact opposite.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, seriously, let's just call it what it is, okay? She's contradicting herself, okay? Because in 1 minute she's saying how she's, there's this judgment, there's this, there's that. And then on the flip side, she's saying, but no, it wasn't happening. That's because they're giving this love bomb energy and emitting it to her to kind of offset that guilt trip. Okay?
It was like, that's okay. You may have felt you could have done better, but it's all part of experience, and it's all part of you learning about how important it is to love and be kind to other people, and how big an impact that can have. So that was just an amazing thing, because I guess I felt that as bad as I felt, they would, reinforce that and say, see, you shouldn't have done that, And there was just nothing like that. And then it was put across to me that I could stay, but I could also go back to my life if I wanted, if I chose. And so they said, we want to show you things that will happen in your life if you choose to go back to it, and some things that may or may not happen in your life. And that's because everyone has free will. And even though we helped you plan your life before you were born, and there are certain things that you want to experience, the people that you want to experience them with have their own free will, and they may choose something that alters that plan completely.
I said I love how she puts that out there, because it's true. We do have, as much as it doesn't seem like we have it, we do have free will here. Okay, we can all come here and do our thing. Now, what those repercussions may be as a result of choosing to do ABC versus XYZ, who knows? And then, of course, you have, your free will versus other people's free will. And those can kind of collide and cause an issue. And yeah, I mean, even though it's like she's openly saying this, okay? If you're in the pre-birth planning phase, they try and hook you in as best they can to, in my opinion, a miserable life script. But they can't do that with everybody. They can't. But they might say like, oh, well, and this is where a different segment of research comes in, where you're looking at past life regressions and specifically pre-birth memories. But in pre-birth memories, they might say, oh, well, you can grow up with a family who's got a lot of money from while you're a child, and you'll be comfortable and okay. But they'll get a divorce, and maybe your father will be an abuser, or something like that. Okay, at the age of 10 or 11. Or there's always these wrenches thrown in, okay? And now, will they always play out that way? No. Because someone still has free will, but again, where you can kind of go off into the past life regression and pre-birth memory, past life regression specifically, you can see how what the Matrix does is it throws up things to remind us subconsciously. And I went over a bunch of cases like this with Michael Newton's book and a few other older videos, where basically like they might throw up something like a sign, like something that is going to remind you to perform a certain act. You still have the choice, but it's going to subconsciously remind you, and you won't even have the memory of what was planned, but you'll play it out. I mean, that's the sick thing. I mean, you'll play it out, And it might unfold a series of events that either is in your favor or not in your favor. It could lead to you finding your wife or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband. I mean, all those things. I mean, it's crazy how this all works out. But, when you have free will in the mix, it does throw a wrench into things. So it's not always going to play out the way we all think it is. And the Matrix relies on that too, because as long as you have the bulk of people lost in the sauce, completely indoctrinated in the system, then there's a higher percentage chance of this thing playing out the way it wants it to be played out for your specific life script. It's really diabolical stuff, okay? And, I am, again, not some fear-mongering channel. I like to put the truth front and center, and I'm not here to win anybody over, but it's just the way it is. So make of it what you will. They've got a lot of tactics in their tool belt, and they run this realm. We're visitors here. We're visitors in a body which is the vessel which they probably created since the beginning, with all the limitations that come with it. And then we're thrown into a system that is controlled from cradle to grave. You are born ignorant. We're all born ignorant. Brought up into the system of indoctrination in a different brain state from birth to age 7. And then those traits often carry on for the rest of our lives, unless we choose to question things and wake up ourselves. How fair is that? I mean, just the fact that early childhood development is just basically us being a sponge for our surroundings, and then having, generation after generation after generation being impacted by the outside system of control that's here. Doesn't it seem like this deck is stacked against us? I mean, really. Think about it.
And there are certain things that you want to experience. The people that you want to experience them with have their own free will, and they may choose something that alters that plan completely.
See? I mean, she's putting it all out there. She's throwing it all out there for everybody to see. It can alter. And that's what I'm saying. It's like somebody else's life script can combine, somebody's life script combined with their free will versus your life script, and your free will can clash. And what happens. What that will be is anyone's guess, but.
And there are certain things that you want to experience. The people that you want to experience them with have their own free will, and they may choose something that alters that plan completely. So some of these things are definite, but those that can be impacted by other people's free will may or may not happen. But we want you to be aware of this before you make your choice. So I was shown things about my future life.
So when the bomb went off under the vehicle,
Okay, my friend. So what I'm going to do is take a quick 5.5 minute break. So go take a stretch. I got to fill my water. Just take a stretch break myself. And I will meet you back here in a short while. Stick around if you'd like to hear more. We're about halfway through. I got a few more NDE'S to go through. Got about 30 minutes to go on this video. So hang in there, and I will see you in a few minutes. Thank you for spending some time with me. Much love. See you in a moment. Okay, my friends, we are back. All right, so we're going to go into the next one. Thank you for your patience. Let's roll. Here we go.
So I was shown things about my future life.
So when the bomb went off under the vehicle, or maybe just...
You know, I should probably give a disclaimer before we start this one, because I'm just going to say it flat out. She's reading from podium. She does this a lot. Okay. She's at a conference which is jam-packed with agents. So I'm just saying, you know, make of it what you will. It's I'm not saying it's true or false what she states, but also military. Okay? These are the types of things when you're looking at NDEs that you have to consider. I'm not saying it's false, but you know, there's a lot of red flags, okay?
Just before that bomb detonated, I left my body. So when the bomb went off under the vehicle, or maybe just before that bomb detonated, I left my body. It was an instantaneous shift that I called blinking. It was that quick. I was in the truck, head on hand, kind of half asleep, and then I was not. Where I found myself, I was standing on a sort of stage, and all around me were arrayed thousands of beings. And they appeared to me, these beings appeared to me to be made of white light. They were wearing long, dark robes. They looked like human forms. And I looked like myself. I was in a human form. I appeared to be sort of shimmery, made of light. But I was in my fatigues, bloody, ripped up fatigues, although I was not injured. I knew.
Okay, so she was in her bloody fatigues, ripped up, but not injured. So she's probably floating above her body.
Sort of shimmery, made of light. But I was in my fatigues, bloody, ripped up fatigues, although I was not injured. I knew exactly where I was, and I knew exactly what I was doing. There was absolutely no hesitation. There was no confusion or displacement. I knew exactly what I was, and I knew exactly what I was doing. And what I was doing was downloading information to these thousands of beings.
I was downloading information to these thousands of beings. Now, mind you, when you start to visually look at people who share NDEs, okay? They can tell you verbatim. They don't need notes. I rarely see moments in NDEs where they're reading at a podium or in front of a crowd and referring to notes as much as she does. And you see this, you know, look at the logo on the top left. And, you know, it's a UFO convention. Okay? So let's just really, you have to take this into account as to what we're hearing.
And it was like making dense packets of information available to these beings. I used my attention and intention, and this was, I didn't think about what I was doing. This is sort of unpacking it from later on, but I would put my attention on this information and then with my intention, make it available to these thousands of beings. The information that I was downloading, it was enormous and it was very dense. It could be described as broadly cultural. And I call it cultural in the sense that it went from everything, every layer from interpersonal interactions all the way up to having to do with broad energy flows that shape and create cultures, not only here in the physical world, but across time and space into other non-physical realities.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
All the way up to cultural. And I call it cultural in the sense that it went from everything, every layer from interpersonal interactions all the way up to having to do with broad energy flows that shape and create cultures, not only here in the physical world, but across time and space into other non-physical realities as well.
Seriously, what does that mean? I mean, does that mean we're all creator beings, which we are, and we're having an impact here and outside of the Matrix construct that all kind of meshes together? I mean, it's a very weird thing to say, but I'm not judging her off that one statement. We'll continue.
When I was finished downloading this information, I communicated to these beings that I was done. I was tired. I didn't have any interest in going back into my physical body. I wasn't interested in the physical world at all. And this decision was accepted. It was an assumption. It was known that this decision was entirely mine. And that
kind of interesting that, that this is a talking point. That this decision was entirely mine. Again, the red flags here, just off the gate about what I know about Ozark Mountain Publishing. We've got a military account. And she's kind of refuting, I had a choice in everything. Which we do hear in NDE'S. That's not uncommon. We do hear that. So I'm not taking that away from her or other people who claim that. The point is when I see someone being given the opportunity to share a near-death experience through Ozark Mountain Publishing at a conference that is most likely linked to the UFO stuff, which is the entire military-industrial complex, and she is a soldier or a veteran, however you want to put it, then my red flags just start going crazy. That's all.
Whatever that decision was, it would be respected. These beings and I existed in a state of mutual respect, personal responsibility, and cooperative creation. They accepted my decision. However, they communicated to me that they would appreciate it if I would return to my body.
They would appreciate it if I return to my body. Versus the people who come on and say, oh, well, I was forced back down to my body, which had likely experienced the memory wipe. Because memory wipes exist in near-death experiences too. And I have examples that are going to be coming onto the channel soon where they openly admit it. Okay? If the memory wipe exists in near-death experiences, that explains a lot. Okay? Because that's what we experience when we come here. We come here with the veil of forgetfulness. So if there's information that seems to be missing in near-death experiences, that opens up an entire floodgate of issues that we should all be aware of. And it's happening. Mark my words, it's happening. You don't have to believe me. I am going to show evidence of it. But it happens in NDEs. The entities admit it. The entities point blank say, oh, well, if we allow you to retain this memory, then it's going to affect your free will. But yet the entities at the same time are saying, oh, well, we've got to, you've got a mission to do and blah, blah, blah. So in one breath, they're saying, okay, do our bidding. And then in the other breath, they're saying, oh, but we got to erase your memory because it would impact your free will. You see the problem there? It's a big, big problem. And, again, I know that's going to be in a future video, but I'm bringing this up because it's really important. It's extremely important.
Decision. However, they communicated to me that they would appreciate it if I would return to my body.
I appreciate it. I bet they would.
They conveyed to me that my particular skills with energy would be useful at this time in the physical world. And they made a few suggestions of ways that I could put those skills to use. And these suggestions and explorations were things that I had not thought of before. So they reignited my interest in returning to the physical world. So not unlike when that friend called me up and said, hey, you want to go to Iraq? And I said, okay. These guys.
Hey, you want to go to Iraq and, go to the war? Yeah, that's a fun conversation, right? Yeah. Yeah, you want to go over to the Middle East and do our country's bidding? That's completely a fraud? Sure, yeah.
I said, hey, you want to go back and do this? And I said, okay. So I guess leaping before looking isn't just a trait of my physical world personality. So you can keep some of those things in mind as I move into the deep rest environment. This deep rest environment feels like a very private and spacious place. It's almost as if I fold so far into myself that I disappear and I become pure consciousness. And private as this is, when I first go to this environment, this space, there are two other beings with me. And they're kind of tuning up or tinkering with my consciousness. I didn't perceive myself.
Oh, they're tuning up or tinkering with my consciousness. I don't know if this NDE is true, but that's quite an interesting statement, isn't it? Let's hear that again.
And private as this is, when I first go to this environment, this space, there are two other beings with me. And they're kind of tuning up or tinkering with my consciousness.
Tuning up or tinkering with my consciousness? How does that happen? That's allowed? Because, assuming this is all on the up and up, she allowed it. She's okay with it. But she's, reading from a paper too at a podium, which you don't see with NDEs. So I'm going to keep saying things like this because it's important to recognize discernment in NDEs too. Because when red flags present themselves and are trying to paint things as, oh, you have all the choice, blah, 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 blah. When, you're being manipulated by an outside force and, in this case, like an energy manipulation, that kind of puts things in a different scenario, right? I mean, it doesn't really jive well, at least with me. And I know with most people in the chat tonight, it's not something that sits well with us, that we're going to allow an outside force to run the show about us.
That I disappear and I become pure consciousness. And private as this is, when I first go to this environment, this space, there are two other beings with me. And they're kind of tuning up or tinkering with my consciousness. I didn't perceive myself as having a form in this environment. I felt as if I were just an organization of energy or an organization of consciousness. And
you mean the company that you work for? The organization in Virginia?
They were tuning up that organization. So they were doing their thing and I was doing mine. And my thing at first was just going into a deep, deep state of relaxation and rejuvenation. And when I was finished with that, I did what might be called a life review. But for me, it was more like a casual wander through memories. I wasn't just revisiting snapshots or just kind of paging through those memories, but though when I'd view an event or an experience.
Okay, listen. When she looks down at this moment, this is the moment, if you have any experience looking at NDE'S, especially people who give you their testimony, they're not looking down at paper. They're not at a podium. They're just spitting it out. This is the ABC of NDE moments that people can just spit out no problem. It's automatic. Nobody needs to look down. I'm telling you that, you don't have to believe me, but if you go and you start to look at these things, you'll see that someone like her who's looking down at I will call it a script, okay? In front of an audience with the pyramid logo, Ozark Mountain Publishing, who's, all about alien disinformation and, space alien stuff, okay? You're being lied to. This is an NDE that has to be thrown out. Has to be thrown out because, as much as I want to say, oh, well, give you excuse here, give you excuse there, but all the red flags there, every single red flag that I could think of is in my face. You do not get a spot at the podium for something like this unless you're allowed to. Okay? And you should not have to refer to a piece of paper during these key moments of an NDE that you can look at when all of the other ones have absolutely no problem spitting it out automatically. These are not the type of things you need to refer to if you have an NDE on a piece of paper. Okay? That's it. I mean, that's just it. I mean, there's no way around it.
It was more like a casual wander through memories. I wasn't just revisiting snapshots or just kind of paging through those memories. But though, when I'd view an event or an experience, I could also see and be every effect that an action or thought had.
666.
And not just in terms of the immediate people that I was interacting with, but I saw or experienced an event's effect extending throughout the physical world and beyond into other non-physical dimensions or realities. And during this wander down memory lane, I had no interest in consequences in terms of sin or karma or any of those kinds of ideas. I paid no attention to whether I'd been good or evil, kind or mean, smart or stupid. There wasn't any judgment like that. There was only a personal evaluation based on my own interests and curiosity.
So basically, you mean, judgment, sinning, shunning, shame. Yeah, that type of stuff. Which we hear all the time.
And what I was paying attention to, these personal interests focused down to three things. Number one, whether this or that action or thought had been particularly surprising in its effects. Even my human personality is drawn to odd juxtapositions and unexpected effects. So it's fascinating when something leads to something that I had never imagined. So that was number one. Number two, whether this or that event, thought, or belief had been particularly creative in its expression. Did I do or think something in a new way, leading again to something that I had never imagined? And my third criteria that I was evaluating things on was it fun? The conventional idea of fun has to do with ease, laughter, joy, sunny beaches, margaritas, right? My idea of fun was much broader than this. My definition of fun had to do with whether something was surprising, adventurous, whether it pushed my boundaries, whether it stretched me so that I learned or gained more from it than I had expected. I was interested in what I learned, how I had expanded my creative potential, and what the effects of that creative potential were on a very broad scale.
So, self-realization, self-inner reflection.
I also knew so deeply that it was assumed that I knew and could actually see that thoughts create reality. Attention and intention create manifestation, as most of you probably know.
It's just seriously, this is the reason why I throw cases like this out is so we can all together fine-tune our discernment meter. It's really, really important to be able to evaluate a person by person, and that doesn't mean you're judging them or casting anything on them, but again, you got multiple red flags in this specific incident, and she's kind of painting the picture, everything, everything's fine, no big deal, Earth's great, just furthering the Stockholm Syndrome narrative. No, thank you. No.
And not just in the non-physical, but here in the physical world, because this physical world exists within all that is. The non-physical and the physical are one. Our thoughts don't just affect how we view what we experience. They create the actual physical manifestation that we experience as this reality. Our beliefs, thoughts, and imaginations are the creative force of the world. Our thoughts literally create individual experiences, manifestations, and the collective reality that we participate in.
Well, there was a lot of lessons, but the three most.
All right, so you can see I had a lot of problems with that last one, but again, like I said, I put it in there for a reason as a lesson in discernment. Yeah, so just be careful. Be careful. That's all. All right, so let's get to him.
Collective reality that we participate in.
Well, there was a lot of lessons, but the three most primary lessons that I figured I felt as almost the life review were like gifts to me. The first was acceptance, because I saw my entire life and I got to see it through other people's perspectives, through that exchange, and I got to see it in such a way that I understood, I suddenly knew who I was.
Do you see the difference in authenticity here? He's not looking down at a script. He is almost reliving some of the moments as he talks. You can feel it. You can sense it. I mean, it's a different feel than what we saw in the last presentation.
That exchange, and I got to see it in such a way that I understood, I suddenly knew who I was, and I could accept that this is who I am, and that I may not be a perfect person, but I could accept this is who I am right here, right now, and that I can work on myself. I have a lifetime to work on myself, and I'm probably going to have more lifetimes to work on whatever it is my agenda is at that time.
I'm probably going to have more lifetimes. See the Stockholm Syndrome setting in? I mean, it's all there. He is convinced that, you know, Earth is normal. No big deal. Come down here. It's all good. You know, it's not insane. None of that stuff. And, you know, I'm even though I'm kind of being a little confrontational here, I don't mean any harm to him. I appreciate him sharing, but it shows you how if any of us had this type of experience before waking up to the reality of what was going on, how it can impact you.
I can work on myself. I have a lifetime to work on myself.
Probably many more.
And I'm probably going to have more lifetimes to work on whatever it is my agenda is.
No, thank you.
Future lives or past lives. And I feel that, so that acceptance was a big lesson for me, because with acceptance, you can be comfortable in your skin and your surroundings and talking to everyone else. And with that life review and those interactions, I saw acceptance of other people as well. Before my near-death experience, I was pretty brash, didn't have much understanding of other people's point of views, and I was very self-centered. I had my own view, and it was self-contained. And if you didn't agree with my point of view, then I didn't care, you know, and I would just, you weren't much a part of my life if you didn't believe in what I believe in. So, but in the life review, I got to see that there are other people's paths that don't have anything to do with me, and that they can live their life, and and now I have a tolerance for their path that I didn't have before, because I saw that they have their path and they have their purpose in life, and it doesn't necessarily have to agree with my path and my purpose. and I can be tolerant of that. And that was a big lesson for me as well. I suddenly could accept who I was, and I could be tolerant of others. And we're going to exchange paths, we're going to cross paths, we're going to interact, and many times I may not agree with their personal views or their what they're doing in life or what they want to achieve in life, but that's all right. In fact, I think that a lot of life's interactions, I think all of our life's experiences need to be enjoyed, the good and the bad, because we're going to meet some people that are going to push our buttons and maybe push us to the brink of anger or something like that. And that's a good time to look at what caused that, what brought that up within me. So they could be a teacher to me, Mm-hmm. And I've had some really...
They can be a teacher to me. Look, you feel the authenticity of this man compared to what we just heard, right? And he's just trying to find his way. Versus the NPC that we just witnessed.
Or something like that. And that's a good time to look at what caused that, what brought that up within me. So they could be a teacher to me, Mm-hmm. And I've had some really good teachers that have pushed a lot of those buttons, and so I've learned from that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a lot more talented. Mm-hmm. I also saw that we can all experience something together. You and I could have an experience, a shared experience. But the truth of that experience to me is going to be different than the truth of that experience to you. And you're going to know the truth of that experience through your heart. Because when you hear your truth, your heart sings about it. And that's the way I gauge my truth, is through my heart. When my heart sings, I know it's my truth. And a lot of us have passions that we...
What does that kind of show? It shows uncertainty. Just there. About the heart.
Through your heart. Because when you hear your truth, your heart sings about it. And that's the way I gauge my truth, is through my heart.
Now, let me just say, throughout my journey, there were many times where I thought I was completely in the right about things I was saying. And people say, oh, well, I resonated with this, I resonated with that. Michael Corleone said this, Mikey Corleone said that. And later on, you realize you couldn't have been more wrong about what you thought was truth, what you thought was legit, real, etc. So the reason I say that is that when we're on our journey, we're thrown all these curveballs where we think we're right. And the system relies on that because, we might run across a certain thing and research it to death. And what we're doing is getting confirmation bias all over the place. And, we revisit the topic a year or two later and then find out, oh my God, the whole thing is bullshit. So that shows that our discernment meter is always prone to outside manipulation, whether it's from us deep within because we truly believe it, or by the system constructs around us that we are signing on to and putting forward as truth, if that makes sense. It's really, really crazy stuff. So Just please remember that just because something resonates or feels right, it doesn't necessarily make it true. That's a really, really hard lesson. So again, I say that a lot in my videos just to make sure to put the point across, because I've been fooled many, many times, and I freely admit that. But I know with what's going on here with this reality that it all kind of boils down into this, that we're being taken for a ride in every imaginable way possible. And it's time for us to stand our ground and do what's right for us, not for anyone else, nothing, when we leave here. That's it.
Heart sings, I know it's my truth. And a lot of us have passions that a lot of times we repress in life. And I think after an experience, you tend to not repress that anymore, because it's another indicator of the interactions that we're going through in life, and a way to just squeeze all the juice out of that interaction so that you can learn from all of it.
I felt as if I was just floating in this beautiful night sky, and I began to feel this connection to everyone I'd ever met. Sometimes near-death experiencers talk about a tunnel that they go down, but I was in the night sky. Then very quickly, I was just in the stars. And when I was in that place, I began to feel a deeper sense of peace, because I felt this consciousness coming toward me that was like the light of God, perhaps. It was a light that was full of intelligence and peace. And
that was the light of God, perhaps. The unknown. But because it felt so good, well,
I was just in the stars. And when I was in that place, I began to feel a deeper sense of peace, because I felt this consciousness coming toward me that was like the light of God, perhaps. It was a light that was full of intelligence and peace and joy. These messages started coming toward me, and the messages are very simple. One was, love is all that matters. It's all that we take with us when we go. The other was, remind them to go to nature. And then I started to see little images of myself playing as a kid in nature and how happy I was. And then I thought, okay, maybe adults get too serious and we need to go play in nature more often. And then that light, I call it the light of God, showed me more of my life. There were some elements that I didn't like as much. They weren't the parts that most people would judge me for.
There were some elements I didn't like as much.
Adults get too serious and we need to go play in nature more often. And then that light, I call it the light of God, showed me more of my life. There were some elements that I didn't like as much. They weren't the parts.
Okay, so the light of God showed her. The light of God. Her words, not mine. But she didn't like it as much. See? Guilt, fear, shame, Matrix. Front and center.
Adults get too serious and we need to go play in nature more often. And then that light, I call it the light of God, showed me more of my life. There were some elements that I didn't like as much. They weren't the parts that most people would judge me for. It wasn't the drinking or the partying. It was when I judged people and when I was rude to someone. That's what God showed me was not right, because I wasn't looking at the heart of people. I wasn't looking at who they were inside. I was judging them based on where they went to college or what clothes they wore, or if I deemed them cool enough to be my friends. And there was this one couple I worked with who actually prayed for me. They knew that I was depressed, and maybe they knew even that, there was something that they picked up on that their hearts went out to me. So they kept me in their prayers. Maybe they were even a part of why I didn't die with that suicide attempt. Their love was an observant love, but it was a love that participated in my life. And I saw, oh, I missed out on some really good friendships because I was superficial and judgmental.
A love that participated. A love that participated.
Even that, there was something that they picked up on that their hearts went out to me. So they kept me in their prayers. Maybe they were even a part of why I didn't die with that suicide attempt. Their love was an observant love, but it was a love that participated in my life. And I saw, oh, I missed out on some really good friendships because I was superficial and judgmental and lost in my own pain and darkness instead of looking at people around me. And I was like, I'll never do that again. And I'll always look, I promise, into the hearts of people. And that was my big lesson in the near-death experience.
Every time a person has a lifetime, when they come back to the other side or the afterlife, they go through what is called a life review. So we walked in, and it was like a theater, like when you go to see a movie in a theater. But on this building, there wasn't just one movie screen. There were
I mean, how many examples do I show on this channel about how what they do is build us up by entering something like a theater, like an arena, where our ego is boosted, okay? It's an ego booster to make us feel special. And, a lot of times people will recognize other beings in the crowd and say, oh my God, there's, Uncle John and Aunt Jill, that, died a few years back, and, they're cheering you on in the arena, and you're the center of attention. Why is this mechanism in place except to feed the ego and kind of prime you for the life review of the guilt, fear, shame matrix with a side of love and positivity. They're approaching all the angles.
Every time a person has a lifetime, when they come back to the other side or the afterlife, they go through what is called a life review. So we walked in, and it was like a theater, like when you go to see a movie in a theater. But on this building, there wasn't just one movie screen. There were a series of movie screens all around in a big circle. So everywhere you looked, you could see a movie screen. And my guide said, this is where you review your life. And all of a sudden,
my guide said, this is where you review your life. Outside forces influencing and taking control of, in my opinion, of this man. The guides are part of the Matrix, as are anything that is trying to keep you here away from a sovereign decision.
all around in a big circle. So everywhere you looked, you could see a movie screen. And my guide said, this is where you review your life. And all of a sudden, each one of those screens came on like they were showing a movie, but it was about my life. It was about childhood. There was adolescence. There was my school age years in elementary school. And it was like they had the film of my life showing on these screens all the way up to the point where I was 21, all the things I had done, people I had seen, conversations I had had, years of growing up. So I could actually.
How creepy is that? That there is this backlog ready and available to the control mechanism, no matter how you interpret it, good or bad, that is monitoring and uploading every moment of every day, of every second of your life. I mean, seriously, how creepy is that? I mean, it's nuts that every single moment of our day is recorded and then thrown back in our face. I mean, if think about you, always put yourself in the chairs of the controllers. Okay, think about it. Like if I was to run this place like a sick SOB, how would I do it? I would run it just like the way they're doing it. If you're going to be a nutcase and try and control people, control spirits, then you're going to give them all the above options and put that energy forth so you control the narrative. So you keep them coming back. We're sensory addicts. That's really what we are. We're addicted to the sensory experience instead of the solitude and true self of all of us. We would rather hand over our true spirit essence in exchange for this experience for our sensory addiction than to just go about business as normal as our true spirit essence. And, maybe we're out there, we like a challenge, those types of things. Sure, that's all possibility. Because at my core, I'm a very curious being. But endorsing what goes on here and just discounting it is ridiculous. Because who the hell wants to reincarnate? You really want to reincarnate when we live in some grand, massive multiverse that we can go explore? Let alone the importance of creating our own reality when we leave here so we can at least, at a minimum, give ourselves some time to regain our composure. Oh, no. Let's just rush to the light. Let's just rush to some mechanism that we have no clue what the hell it is, what it's doing, and just drop our pants and say, no. I mean, we just gotta do what we gotta do for ourselves and then go explore. But in the meantime, keep your own reality away from any outside forces. I mean, seriously, why do they gotta act so fast? Why do they gotta act so crazy and just immediately come after us? It's instantaneous. And if you just put your intention out there that you're not going to deal with this crap, you're not going to allow anything to control the show of you, your life, your existence, your everlasting existence, then cool. You can revisit whatever the heck you want to revisit later. But why do you need to be forced into some wacky decision within this matrix? It's nuts. There's no explaining this place away. There's no explaining the mechanisms in place here. How come all these NDEs don't ask, you know, it's funny how they never bring up the question about all the insanity here. None of that's ever addressed. None of it's ever addressed. Satanism, the control, the robbing of your sovereignty, the spiritual manipulation, the fact that the body is borderline impossible to please because it can't adapt to its environment unless the temperature's at a certain temperature. I mean, it's nuts. You really want to roll the dice and come back to this and just let's just discount it. No, there's no reason to think about any of this. Let's just throw it all away. No big deal. We'll just throw our sovereignty to the wind and, hope that all is best. It's nuts. You deserve better than that. We all deserve better than that. There's no explanation for not taking your time when you cross over. There's none. I mean, I don't know how many ways I can frame it and throw it up there and just say, take control of you. Be your own true essence. Be your own creator being. And don't allow yourself to get caught in the wheels of this insanity again. You deserve better. That's really the bottom line. We all deserve better.
We physically see all these different aspects of my life. And that's what they call the life review. And everyone has one. And that's, I think, the whole idea of people being judged has come from early churches about you're going to be judged by God. But when you look at these life reviews, you're not judged at all. Nobody is with you except your spirit guide. And your spirit guide helps you evaluate if you learned what you determined you wanted to learn when you came into the earth in the first place. And that's the whole reason of the life review. Did you accomplish what you'd set out to accomplish?
And as we close it down, did you accomplish what you set out to accomplish? Here, let's just hear that again. Let me pop on the camera. Let's just hear this again.
The whole idea of people being judged has come from early churches about you're going to be judged by God.
But somehow, the bulk of people who go through near-death experiences think they're dealing with God. They think they're dealing with God. They say it themselves time and time and time again in near-death experiences over and over and over again that they met God. They met Jesus. They met the Grand Pumbaa.
The whole idea of people being judged has come from early churches about you're going to be judged by God. But when you look at these life reviews, you're not judged at all. Nobody is with you except your spirit guide. And
Except your spirit guide. Nobody's with you except something else trying to control you. That's it. No big deal. Nothing else. And sometimes there's multiple. Sometimes there's the council. Sometimes there's all sorts of beings hanging around trying to get their dirty little claws in you and control you and keep you confined within the system. We see it time and time again. There's no denying it. It pops up all the time where there's something interfering with the person having the experience.
and everyone has one. And that's, I think, the whole idea of people being judged has come from early churches about you're going to be judged by God. But when you look at these life reviews, you're not judged at all. Nobody is with you except your spirit guide.
I mean, how many NDE'S did we go over tonight? I mean, how obvious could it be that there is judgment, that there is a guilt, shame, fear, matrix narrative being presented to the person experiencing it? I mean, we see it all the time. This is just a small sample. And what is this guy? This guy's coming on and just saying, oh, no big, it's all good because, they threw down the love bomb at me. Everything is fine. Come on.
And your spirit guide helps you evaluate if you learned what you determined you wanted to learn when you came into the earth in the first place.
Funny, I mean, let me hold on. Let me get my Matrix calculator phone. Matrix. Yeah. I'm interested to know what's my life script? What did I agree to? And how can I grow? Oh, okay. I'll be born without any recollection of where I came from, why I'm here, or where I'm going, or what I need to improve on, and I won't have any memory of everything. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay. Sounds amazing. Okay. You see the insanity? It's insane. There's no explanation for it that can justify what's going on here. Okay? We can hear all these people say, there's lessons, there's this, there's that, and blah, blah, blah. But they're all interacting with something that is not themselves. It's not within them. They are not given a moment to find themselves. So the Matrix bat phone is disconnected from this guy. Okay, from me, not this guy. This guy is explaining it away. I refuse to interact. It's just not going to happen.
And that's the whole reason of the life review. Did you accomplish what you'd set out to accomplish?
And as we floated down and I looked up, I saw all my spiritual brothers and sisters, and they were all greeting me with waves of energy. And I realized indeed this was my home. These were my brothers and sisters. And when I looked up to the right side, very close to me, I saw family members and friends and loved ones who had passed on before me. And they greeted me more closely. And indeed, this was my home. These were my spiritual brothers and sisters. This was the perfect family that I had always longed for in my life. The experience was like being at every birth, every birthday, every graduation ceremony, every wedding, every reunion, every celebration in a perfect family. Because that's where I was, and that's what I was experiencing. And then suddenly, the assembly became quiet. And I found myself stepping forward, just one space. And as I did so, all of a sudden, I was enveloped in what I would describe as a crystalline sphere.
Oh, a crystal sphere. Okay, let's hear some more.
It was a crystalline sphere of virtual reality.
Oh.
And in this virtual reality,
of virtual reality. This is one of the videos that is just low, just so you know. I tried to balance it as best I could, but
I began to witness a review of my life in complete detail.
I'm here in this tunnel, and I looked upward towards the tunnel, and I saw this bright light, and it was so light, it was like 1,000 suns all exploding at the same time. And I remember saying, that should be burning my retinas out. But it was so bright, I didn't even blink.
And that's a very, very common thing to hear in NDEs, where they'll compare it to the sun and they'll say, oh, well, you know, it should have blinded me or this and that. But, you know, it's stronger than 10 suns, 40 suns, and 100 suns. And that's how they'll describe it. So, but it's got an energy that pulls them. You hear them say pull, pull. That's a big one that we hear a lot.
Could just look at it, and it drew me in like a gentle magnet.
It drew me in like a gentle magnet. I mean, that's something overpowering him. He should cut it off immediately. But, of course, that doesn't happen.
I'm here in this tunnel. And I looked upward towards the tunnel, and I saw this bright light, and it was so light, it was like 1,000 suns all exploding at the same time. And I remember saying, that should be burning my retinas out. But it was so bright, I didn't even blink. I could just look at it, and it drew me in like a gentle magnet, pulling me down the tunnel. And as I got about halfway down the tunnel from where the light was, I immediately popped into a big giant sphere. It was about the size of our high school gymnasium. And I'm hovering in the sphere, in the center of the sphere, with a light next to me, and all around in every direction, top, bottom, right, left, were...
I mean, what's up with the setting here? Can anyone fill me in? I mean, this is a... this is a near-death experience. I mean... Look, what's this? I mean, you know, her things are popping out, her legs are all over the
down.
Hold on one sec. Is the stream connected? I got it disconnected here. Hold on one moment, guys. Oh boy. All right, I think we're back. Okay. All right. So, I'm not sure where I got cut off, but all right, we're good. YouTube dropped really quick. Yeah, got lost in the Matrix. Absolutely, Panda. All right, so yeah, if you hear an echo, just refresh. I think we're good. Okay. So I mean, I was commenting on what's up with this. This whole setting is weird. I've heard this guy's NDE probably about 4 times in different settings, and this one's just interesting. I mean, her tatas are popping out, her legs are all over the place. I mean, NDEXXX.com. $9.99 a month. Inverted.
Down in every direction, top, bottom, right, left, were motion pictures of me, of my life and my lives, and all the things that went on through years and years of living. And every time I would focus on one, I would actually feel myself drawn into it. And I was reliving it then. But it was different than living it the first time, because not only did I know what I was doing, but I could feel the feelings of everyone I was interacting with. And this went on for what seemed like hours. And then all of a sudden I popped out back into the tunnel again. And now I'm being absorbed by the light.
And now I'm being absorbed by the light. He's basically handing to you on a silver platter that he is allowed something else to suck him in and control him. He's being absorbed by the light. He's being engulfed by the light.
it the first time, because not only did I know what I was doing, but I could feel the feelings of everyone I was interacting with. And this went on for what seemed like hours. And then all of a sudden I popped out back into the tunnel again. And now I'm being absorbed by the light. And the light says three things to me. The light says, Andy, don't be afraid. Andy, I love you. Andy, we love you. And when the light said, Andy, we love you to me, surrounding the light are countless billions of other lights. And I knew them all. And I said to myself, it's so good to be home, because I knew that I was home. That's where I belong.
It's so good to be home, but, I was sucked in by the light. I was taken in by the light and all this love.
It's so good to be home, because I knew that I was home. That's where I belong.
Way back in the distance, way up behind me, on the top of a mountain, so big that it had this winding road all the way up it, and there were so many people on that road going up and coming down that the hill looked like it was alive. It was like a beehive, just constantly moving.
It was like a beehive constantly moving, which is what, hive mind being represented. I don't want anything to do with the hive mind. I want to be able to get out of here on my own without the hive mind influence even coming near me.
That road going up and coming down, that the hill looked like it was alive. It was like a beehive, just constantly moving. And the top of the hill, very clearly delineated, was a Syrian mountain man. And he looked an awful lot like Jesus. He looked to be about 15 feet tall.
He looked an awful lot like Jesus. He was 15 feet tall. Okay. 15 feet. There's always this intimidation game going on. Well, not always, but often there's this intimidation game going on with people who have NDEs too, where they will. And another data point to throw out there are people who have DMT and ayahuasca trips, where they will meet entities that tower over them and intimidate them. A 15-foot Jesus? Where's that in the Bible? Where's that in the scriptures? I didn't know Jesus was 15 feet. I didn't know any of these entities were these big giants, but somehow the intimidation factor comes in. It's so prevalent in DMT and ayahuasca trip reports. It's not even funny that beings overpower them in an illusory factor. Illusory. I always have trouble saying that word. Illusory presence and attempt to control people or control the person who's having the experience. And how is that not an intimidation tactic? How? If something is bigger than you and towering over you and looking down on you and portraying strength, then how is that not intimidating? Can't excuse that away, right? And the components that cross one another. Again, we're talking about very prevalent data points here. We're seeing an NDE experience talk about it, and then we see it in ayahuasca and DMT breakthrough trip reports specifically.
He looked an awful lot like Jesus. He looked to be about 15 feet tall, long hair, beard, mustache, and just the most piercing and kind He asks you a question. What did you do for your fellow man? It's a life review. You're going year by year through your whole life. Anytime you're stuck and you don't recall, one of the walls comes alive as the movie of your life. And it shows you doing something for your fellow man. For me, that was when I was 10.
Oh, you mean so whenever you're kind of losing interest, a distraction pops up?
The movie of your life. And it shows you doing something for your fellow man. For me, that was when I was 10, 11 years old. I didn't know if I did anything for somebody then. And the wall came alive, and there I was at the crossing guard at my grammar school. And I just took that responsibility so seriously, especially with the little kids, the kindergartners and the first graders and so on. And according to wherever I was, I call it paradise, but that was what I did for my fellow man when I was trying to answer the question over and over again, what have you done for your fellow man?
And walked a little bit further into the garden, and as we...
I was trying to ask over and over. Oh, let me bring it.
For me, the movie of your life, and it shows you doing something for your fellow man. For me, that was when I was 10, 11 years old. I didn't know if I did anything for somebody then. And the wall came alive, and there I was at the crossing guard at my grammar school. And I just took that responsibility so seriously, especially with the little kids, the kindergartners and the first graders and so on. And according to wherever I was, I call it paradise, but that was what I did for my fellow man when I was 10.
Okay, he's 10 years old. 10. The children who have NDEs are very interesting because they have much less life experience, much less dealing with death, and the Matrix kind of handles them differently, which is, to me, a very fascinating area to look into. But it shows how where your head is at really takes precedence with all this, because something we see with NDEs across the board is that the experience is customized. So when a younger child has an NDE, you see the differences. You see that, they might not have lost anyone yet. And at the same time, there's still something that is used against them. It could be a religion that they grew up within, or various other things, but it's not as intense as it is with adults, because they really throw the book at adults. But I think that's just because there's more life experience. There's more for the system to throw at the person who has more life experience. Now, if you're a child and, maybe you lose your grandparents early on or what have you, then the Matrix is gonna, grandma and grandpa are gonna show up or whatever it may be. But if you don't have that scenario, it tends to be a little more cautious. And, that's just my personal observation with all this. I mean, everyone has to do their own research and see what they come up with, but that's what I see. So I find children who have NDEs, they don't have as much to go on, if that makes sense, because they haven't lived as long, right? They haven't experienced as much suffering most of the time, or death within the family. So, the deceased grandma or grandpa aren't necessarily going to show up. So it's interesting stuff. Just to put that out there.
Trying to answer the question over and over again. What have you done for your fellow man?
And walked a little bit further into the garden. And as we did that, that huge loving presence that was with us got behind me. So it was like the three of us with this big, huge loving presence behind me. And we stopped. And when we stopped, we kind of turned this way. And there was it was like a screen, watching a screen of my life on an old-fashioned movie reel. This is a black and white screen, an old-fashioned movie on an old-fashioned movie reel, and this was my life review. And not only did I have my two brothers with me in this huge loving presence, who I knew was God, there was a whole bunch of other people that came, and they were loving on me too, and I was like, I know them and they know me, but
they were loving on me. Here, listen to this.
Who I knew was God.
Who I knew was God.
Fashioned movie reel. This is a black and white screen, an old-fashioned movie on an old-fashioned movie reel, and this was my life review. And not only did I have my two brothers with me in this huge loving presence, who I knew was God.
This huge loving presence, who I knew was God. You see how certain people are? That just because it is a love frequency, that it's automatically God. There's no other explanation for it. It can't possibly be something deceptive or manipulative. No. It's God. Automatic. I mean, how many times do we see this in NDE'S where they just make this assumption that they're dealing with God? Just because it emits love, just because you feel this love power coming over you, that it just is, it's automatically God? I mean, come on. That's a really that's like a over the top assumption, when we know damn well that there are other beings that exist parallel to us just in the physical, let alone what the heck is going on outside of here if we have something like a near-death experience or an OBE. I mean, it's a really unsafe assumption to make.
There was it was like a screen, watching a screen of my life on an old-fashioned movie reel. This is a black and white screen, an old-fashioned movie on an old-fashioned movie reel, and this was my life review. And not only did I have my two brothers with me in this huge loving presence, who I knew was God, there was a whole bunch of other people.
Who I knew was God. Yeah, just slip that right in.
That came. And they were loving on me too, and I was like, I know them and they know me, but I didn't know from where I knew them from. And they were from all different time periods. And I noticed their clothes. That's what I noticed. The women were wearing these beautiful, not all of them, but some of them were wearing beautiful gowns, and I saw men in fancy suits. I saw people in regular clothes like us. And it was like, how do I know you? But I do know you, and you know me. And it was like we were having another family reunion with all these people, but they were all gathered around for love and support. And I was supposed to be watching this movie, and so
the family reunion is probably her soul group. I'm not saying for certain that's what it is, but that's what I highly suspect.
And it was like, how do I know you? But I do know you, and you know me. And they were, and it.
How do I know you? But I know you. Whoa. It's kind of funny how she shows her hesitation there. But, all is well, I'm with God. It's just the assumptions that make things just out of control.
It was like we were having another family reunion with all these people, but they were all gathered around for love and support. And I was supposed to be watching this movie. And so I was watching this movie. And it was from the moment I was born until that time that I died. But it was over that fast. And I thought, I missed something. Something's missing here. And because there was no judgment, none at all. I didn't judge myself. I mean, I learned that the only judgment we have is when we judge ourselves, standing with God there and all.
Standing with God. Yeah. That's it. That's the only way.
All God does is love you through it. He doesn't judge you. Well, I didn't judge me either. I just watched it. I was kind of going with the flow. I was like, could have knocked me over with a feather with everything that was going on. I heard God's voice. It was a man's voice. It was a gentle voice. It wasn't.
Hi, my name's Alice. I've got an ass bigger than yours.
Booming and angry. It was a gentle voice, but he said, what you put out into the universe will come back to you. I had never heard words like that before. I didn't know what in the world that meant. It's the little things that you do. It's the little things, the loving things, or the not so loving things. It's not these grand, great, big, humongous things that people think they have to do in order to earn your way into heaven, because you can't earn your way into heaven no matter what you do, for one. And for two, it's the little things. It's the smile you gave to someone whose life was really a mess, the hand on the shoulder. It's the sharing your toys when you were little. It's the here, you lost your sweater and you're cold. Here's my sweater. Little things you don't think would matter at all. That's the stuff that matters.
And she's right. That's what always seems to come up in NDE'S, the little things that the person has no clue that they did, doesn't remember them, like I brought up earlier, giving a child like a lollipop, wherever, at the bus station or, at the beach or all those types of things, all these small things that really don't make sense. And NDE account after NDE account, we hear time and time again, it's always these small things that the Matrix throws in at us or at the experiencer as this big revolutionary thing. And meanwhile, you can go drop off a bag of food at the homeless shelter, and the Matrix, we'll just skip over that. No. It's this weird little one moment thing that it likes to throw in your face. And I like this woman. I think she seems like a sweetheart, as do most of these people who are sharing their stories. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they went into these experiences having preconceived notions about what God is and what all these things they're experiencing are. And I think it's the most detrimental thing to one's way to liberate themselves. So, my hat is off to all of them. I think it's good that they share their testimonies with us, but it's clear that years and years and years of programming have taken its toll. So, with that, I will leave it there, and I will see you guys again this weekend with Mr. Wayne Bush, where we are going to get into TV and movies with the Soul Trap. It's going to be a great show, and we're going to dive deep into it. And also, I would like to mention that I have 2 YouTube backup channels, a D Live, a Twitch, Instagram, all that happy stuff. I'm sure there's something else. Odysee. Odysee and D Live, I will be doing exclusive streams on. I've already done a few on Odysee, but D Live is coming up soon, where I'll be doing exclusive streams. So head on over there and sign up, please, if you'd like to watch those. And I think that'll be about it. I have the website. I purchased the domain and the hosting. It's just going to take me a little while to set up, but that's coming soon as well. And just so you know, I have channel memberships here. So if anyone would like to sign up for those, feel free. You can check the description for that as well. There are 3 different levels, and the second and third level include monthly members streams, and our next one, which is about to be announced, will be on Sunday the 19th. So those will be for people who sign up for levels 2 and 3. So keep an eye out for the community tab with the announcement. I believe we're doing Sunday the 19th at 4 p.m. Doing it a little bit early because of the holidays. So thank you again for anyone out there who supports the channel, and thank you everyone out there who has participated in the chats, left all the comments. Always appreciate it, and I learn just as much off of many of you as I hope you learn off of me. And we will see each other again real soon. Thank you so much. Much love and blessings, and I will see you all again soon. Thank you.